Hey, thanks for joining us on a Wednesday for our weekly devotional. I'm Justin Allison, the discipleship pastor here at Greenwood Baptist Church. And today we're going to be looking in the second half of chapter 16 in 1 Samuel. And so let's go ahead and jump right into the text here. Starting in verse 14, I'll be reading from the New Living Translation. Now the Spirit of the Lord had left Saul, and the Lord sent a tormenting spirit that filled him with depression and fear. And this tormenting spirit, I'm going to pause here, is sometimes translated as evil spirit. It's a strange thing to think of God sending some kind of tormenting spirit or sickness or whatever it is upon someone like Saul. It says that filled him with depression and fear, probably thinking of some kind of anxiety, depressive sort of thing that just destabilizes Saul. Perhaps, leading to the rise of David, who has recently been anointed. So that's kind of the background for what's going on in this chapter. And the other comment I wanted to make is that Saul, even though this seems to be about him, it's not really about him. It's really about David. But David is a very small character in the story. Instead, other people are talking about him or doing things with respect to David. And that's what we want to pay attention to in this story. So let's continue on in verse 15. Some of Saul's servants said to him, "A tormenting spirit from God is troubling you. Let us find a good musician to play the harp whenever a tormenting spirit troubles you. He will play soothing music, and you will soon be well again." "All right," Saul said, "find me someone who plays well and bring him here." One of the servants said to Saul, "One of Jesse's sons from Bethlehem is a talented harp player. Not only that, he is a brave warrior, a man of war, and has good judgment. He is also a fine-looking young man, and the Lord is with him." And that is the first sort of description we get of who David is by another person in this chapter. And so David is characterized here in some important ways. He's a talented harp player. I've heard lots of people make jokes about, he had the best guitar solos, or, that he could play the harp the way Kenny G plays the saxophone. It was very relaxing or whatever. I think in terms of ancient Near Eastern literature, at the time period in which this was composed, musical skill like this was seen as an element of wisdom. And I don't think it's a coincidence that many psalms are ascribed to David because of this very fact. There's a wisdom element to being good at some sort of musical instrument. Just like there's wisdom in being skilled at certain types of craftsmanship in the Old Testament. So then we also get that David is a brave warrior. He's a man of war. In other words, he knows when to fight, he knows how to fight, and he knows what to fight for. And he has good judgment. Good judgment. He's also a fine-looking young man, and the Lord is with him. And that last part, the Lord is with him, I think is the most important thing, because this guy, one of the servants of Saul, has actually heard reports about David or seen things about David that make him say the Lord is with him. It's a pretty big deal. Let's continue on. Verse 19. So Saul sent messengers to Jesse to say, "Send me your son David the shepherd." So Jesse responded by sending David to Saul, along with a young goat, a donkey loaded with bread, and a wineskin full of wine. In other words, the king has asked for something, so let's send him some gifts and sort of try to gain the king's favor here. So they do that. Verse 21. So David went to Saul and began serving him. Saul loved David very much, and David became his armor bearer. So in verse 21 here, we find out that Saul actually does some things that show us how much he values David's character. First of all, he loved him very much. And because of that, he makes David an armor bearer, which may have been the guy who carries armor around, that sort of thing. And it may have been sort of an advisor or a part of the council of people in charge of military stuff. It could have been something like that. Armor bearer in that sense could have been a title, much like something like the Secretary of State is part of the presidential cabinet, but has little to do with actually being the secretary. So Saul respects David and has appointed him, put him in a position that shows how much he values him. Then, verse 22, Saul sent word to Jesse asking, "Please let David remain in my service, for I am very pleased with him." And whenever the tormenting spirit from God troubled Saul, David would play the harp. Then Saul would feel better and the tormenting spirit would go away. And so here, the narrator gives us this comment that David would comfort Saul through his music. And I think that shows us a little bit about David's character as well. Remember, David was anointed. He knew he was chosen to be the successor to Saul. And yet, he's not pushing the issue. In fact, he's serving God in the role he's put in. He was asked to serve in this way, so that's what he does. And he willingly does it, and he does a good job at it. He does it in such a way that comforts the king, leads the king to love him, and put him in a position of responsibility and authority. And so I want us to see some parallels from the character of David here that we should try to emulate. So first of all, it would be that thing of remembering where God put us, accepting that, not trying to reach for something else in the moment, but being willing to do what God has asked us to do. In this case, David was placed here as the harp player to comfort the king, and that's what he did. And he did such a good job that it gained favor with the king and he gained more responsibility. Well, that's a blueprint for what you and I can do in our lives. You know, this works out wherever you are in your family, in your job. Maybe it's a place that you serve. Do it in such a way that you do a good job and that you gain favor and earn more responsibility. So that is what David did. And the other thing I want to come back to is the statement that was made about David by one of Saul's servants in verse 18, that he's a talented harp player. In other words, he's skillful. He's got some wisdom. You and I should strive to have some wisdom. He's a brave warrior, a man of war. He knows what to fight for. He knows how to fight when he needs to, and what is worth fighting for. And you and I would benefit from doing that. That shows a little wisdom too, that he has good judgment. How wonderful would it be if you and I lived our life this week so that people around us would say, wow, they really have good judgment. And then the last thing is that we're told the Lord is with him. And so I want to challenge you this week to live in such a way that people would say that about you, that they would say, wow, the Lord is really with that person. Not asking you to go pray on a street corner or do something to make them think, oh, that guy's really religious, or that person, that woman, she says a lot of religious things. That's not the point. Jesus actually condemned that sort of thing. And if David is truly a man after God's own heart, a man who God looks through and sees what's on the inside and sees that there's something good there. There's an attitude of obedience there. And that's what we want to be. We want to be this person who is so obedient to God's word and the mission that God has given us, that place he's placed us, that people would say, the only way I can explain it is that it's like God is with them. It's like the Lord, has their hand on that person. And so you and I should live our lives this week like that. So I want to challenge you to do that. I also want to challenge you to share this with a friend if it has been helpful to you. So why am I asking that? Because we want to help people at Greenwood. We want to help people grow in their faith and see them become fully devoted followers of Christ. And so in doing that, we would love for you to join us at our 3:00 Monday prayer time. So if you can do that, join us on Facebook or YouTube. Send us a prayer request on there. We'd love to pray for you. We'd love for you to pray with us right where you are. And so we want to see you do that. And we would also love to have you connect with us at church. We have worship online and in person on Sundays. Those biggest times are 9:45 and 11 o'clock. Hope to see you at one of those.